Hey everybody, today I'm talking about my top 10 route building board games. For me, this style of game is terribly overlooked and underappreciated really, because you don't hear too many people talking about this particular aspect of board gaming. And I actually have kind of noticed that this mechanism, if you want to call it that, is kind of a hidden gem or a bit of a sleeper, because a lot of my favourite games actually have some degree of route building where you are trying to connect one thing to another on the board, getting points in different ways. And of course there are loads of different ways you can approach this particular mechanism. Now before I get started on the top 10 games plus quite a few honourable mentions, I want to give a shout out to the show's sponsor, KIENDA.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer, and if you use the link in the show notes or the QR code, then you can get 5% off your first order. At number 10, I have Expeditions Around the World. Now this is an interesting game because the routes that you are building on this rather lovely looking map of the world are done not only by yourself but with your opponent's input as well, because each turn you can simply choose to extend one of these three expeditions. You've got like the yellow, the blue and the red route, connecting them from kind of famous city to famous city on this huge board. And what you're trying to do is you are trying to visit particular locations. If you hit certain spots, you might get a bonus action, and you can even store up these kind of little tickets to give you other actions you can take and take more powerful turns. But what I really do like about this game is that, of course, everybody wants to achieve something different and visit different places. But as long as other people are taking their turns extending routes that you're quite happy with them increasing, then you can do something else, because you can obviously piggyback off other players' actions. So I really do like that aspect. Very family friendly, very low rules overhead. Kind of a lovely family weight game, and it's quite educational as well, because you get to see where everything is on this, again, rather lovely looking board. I think some people might bounce off that kind of communal route building, because it can get a little bit frustrating at times when you're so close to your kind of desired location, and then obviously the player before you just kind of diverts it off track just before you wanted to get there. Now there are ways around that, but be prepared to be frustrated at times. So that is Expeditions Around the World at number 10. At number 9, I have Free Ride, which is Friedemann Fries's kind of take on a simple, somewhat pick up and deliver style game. It's a train game where you are kind of building routes around this big map of Europe and kind of an extended area as well. All you're going to do is you are going to either build kind of a train route between two different locations. You can move your train across previously established routes, or you can just take more track into your supply. Now I do love the degree of interaction in this game, because when you build a route, you will put a marker of your colour there to show that you are the person who built that route, and of course you can use your own routes for free. But other players can actually use your route to complete their goals by, again, trying to connect cities together. But if they do that, they have to pay you a fee. But as soon as that fee is paid, then you can remove that marker, and then it's just free for everybody to use. So sometimes you want to sit back and hope that somebody else uses a particular route that you want, so then you get to use it for free. Very smooth, I like the efficiency puzzle here of trying to connect several places together. A good game arc as well, as you start off only being able to do, I believe, one contract, and then you can extend it to like 2 or 3 contracts. Your train gets faster as you go. And it is a real efficiency puzzle and kind of a logistics puzzle of how to try and map things out. And for me, I think it's criminal that this game kind of lives in the shadow of games like Ticket to Ride. I think this game is leagues better than Ticket to Ride and not even much heavier at all. But the decision space is a little bit more interesting. And I just really like the flow of this one. I suppose my only criticism is that it can be a little bit too long at times. So you can kind of house rule that, and sometimes the the ergonomic ability of reading the board isn't the easiest at times, but they are nitpicks, and it is a very solid, almost evergreen feeling game. So that is Free Ride at number 9. At number 8, I have Karuba. This is a cool game where you are trying to get these explorers to the matching coloured temples on this grid map. So on one side of the board you have all your explorers, where they kind of spawn at the beach, and kind of through all the jungle you've got all their matching temples. And as the game progresses, you are going to be pulling these tiles which will show all these different roads. So some of these roads might be, T-junctions, some of them might be complete crossways, some of them might be a single road, and so on. And you can place these tiles in any way you want on this grid, trying to, of course, build a route from that matching explorer to that matching temple. But of course, there's going to be some crossover, and you want to be trying to place these routes as efficiently as possible as to not waste any movement, because the second way you can use these tiles is to discard the tile and then start moving these explorers across those routes, picking up gems as you go. They cannot cross each other's paths, so you have to kind of map things out carefully that way. And I do love that dual layered system of not only having to build the routes, but also having to move the explorers on those routes as well, and knowing when to sacrifice one to do the next. Lovely game, very playable. I've probably played this game 20 or 30 times. Really enjoy when it holds up well, and still very strong game. So that is Karuba at number 8. At number 7, I have a brand new game to the list. This is Pioneer Rails. So only recently acquired this one, and boy oh boy am I impressed. So this is a kind of a draft and write style game, as you have this kind of wild western town. The way that you take actions is actually really interesting, because you are picking these kind of poker cards. One of them will determine the action you can take, or which location you can start spawning your route off of, and the other card will formulate a poker hand, which will give you some bonus points, the stronger hand that you build up. But what I love about this is that there are so many different factors that these routes are contributing to. So for example, you can section off areas of the board with these routes to wrangle cattle and get points that way. You can collect gold mines or go and deposit them in the bank to get points that way. You can get rewarded by visiting different locations on the board. So lots of things going on here. And I love the way that if you time things just right, you can even connect those routes up from those different cities and start getting more and more and amplifying your points that way. Just enough going on to keep you compelled, but simple enough to be really approachable and playable. And yeah, this one is going from strength to strength for me, and it kind of came out of the left field because I wasn't really expecting much from this one, and it definitely did impress me. And again, I'm just really enjoying it at the moment. So that is Pioneer Rails at number 7. At number 6, we are going back to a classic with Through the Desert. So there's a reason why this game is considered a classic, one of the purest Reiner Knizia route building style games, as you have this kind of big hex map in this desert, and you're going to start with a bunch of camels on the board, as is everybody. And then on your turn, all you do is you extend one of your camels' caravans by 2 camels, or you extend 2 separate caravans by 1 camel. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to reach these points tokens or connect to these oases, which will give you points. But you can also get rewarded by sectioning off areas of the board by kind of enclosing it really to get a point for each one of those hexes that have been cornered off. Now this game is probably one of the strongest examples of turn angst and kind of opportunity costs that I've ever seen in a board game, because if you're doing one thing, you are definitely missing out on another because this board is just so damn tight. If you're going to really focus on extending your yellow caravan, then you just know that your opponents have kind of completely spread out where your blue caravan is, and there's nothing left to be taken, and you just basically wasted all the opportunity there. So it really is about trying to do what is right at that right time and race to get to those victory points and understand what is going to be the net gain. So pure, so clean. I've not even tried any of the expansion modules yet with the new version, but that base core version of the game is just so pure and so clean that it almost feels timeless. So that is Through the Desert at number 6. At number 5, I have Next Station, either London or Paris. I've not tried the Tokyo version. This is another flip and write style game where throughout the game you will be building 4 networks of these kind of subways or railways. And what you're trying to do is you are trying to hit several spots in a particular section of the board, but you're going to multiply that number by how many different sections that you connect to. I love the way that you are building 4 different routes as the game goes on, because each round means you're building a different route in a different colour, and it means that as the game progresses, your options are going to quickly start running out because you cannot cross through an existing pathway. But there are clever ways that you can get around that by using particular locations as junctions to cross through, and you'll even get rewarded for having multiple different routes connecting to these same cities. So lots of different things you have to juggle here while still trying to keep your options open. Gameplay, so simple, just flip over a card and extend your route to connect to a city of that shape. So again, very easy to teach and explain, but I do love that decision space and again, the enclosing options that you have and kind of facing the consequences of your earlier inefficiency, if you want to put it that way, because again, when it comes to that fourth round and you are building your fourth railway line, then your options are going to be way more limited than they were earlier. Really impressed by this one, kind of excited what the future holds as well, because obviously there's 3 versions out there right now. I really do like the Paris one. I think that was my favourite one at the moment, but who knows what the future could hold. So that is Next Station at number 5. At number 4, I have Get On Board, and much like Next Station, this game does have several different versions you can play with. You've got the London and New York maps, as well as the Paris and Rome. There's some slight differences between the two, but I would say pick up any. It's not going to affect your experience too much. But of course, this is another flip and right style game, but it isn't a right. You're actually just placing these markers down, these tokens down on a communal board this time. So you are sharing the map with the other players. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to visit certain hotspots in order to pick up passengers and then drop them off at their desired location. So for example, the tourists want to visit the tourist attractions, the businessmen want to go to the the high rises, and so on. And you want to be doing things in the right order, because you want to be loading up your bus with passengers and then depositing them all off in one jump, really, on one stop, because you'll get better points and basically be rewarded for your efficiency. But doing things as you like in this game is quite difficult because of the flip and right system, where you flip a card and it will show you how you can extend your route. So it might say you are doing 3 pathways in one line. It might say you're doing a right angle, or even just like 2 in a straight line. All these different variables of placing these different sticks on the board. And there are ways of getting around that by sacrificing these negative points to turn a right angle into, or turn a corner into a straight line, or vice versa. And it's about trying to kind of make the most of what you can get in this game. Now, there are other twists as well, because sometimes the passenger part of the game conflicts with your overall goal of trying to connect 2 places together. There are public objectives, and what I really love about this game is this traffic system, where if you share a road with somebody else, then you're going to suffer negative points, because you get punished for causing congestion, and I really like that. So ideally you want to try and stay away from where your opponents are, but sometimes that's not the easiest thing to do. Very charming game, super quick, only takes around 20 minutes to play. It scales well, and I just love everything about it. So that is Get On Board at number 4. At number 3, we are going full on Euro with Hanza Tonica. So definitely a different feel to a lot of the other games on this list, because again, this is a very Eurocentric style game, but route building is a pivotal part of it, where you are trying to create the biggest connected route of these different locations on this map. You can even increase your engine, or improve your engine, in terms of increasing the yield of points you'll get. You'll get rewarded by connecting one side of the board to the other side of the board. But what I love is the pure competition and the kind of butting shoulders or butting heads with your opponents in this game, because in order to actually establish your kind of spots on the board, you need to create routes in order to do that by placing your little cubes on these paths. But you are actually rewarded to get in the way of your opponents, because if you block their pathway, then they're going to have to spend extra effort to kick you off, and that'll increase your presence elsewhere. So there's this real kind of matrix and this kind of kaleidoscope of actions that can happen as people are constantly blocking each other off and increasing their presence on the board. Again, I love the engine building, as you can make yourself more efficient, and not only increasing the points you'll get by building your routes, but also how quickly you can take cubes into your supply, or the different regions you can actually put your presence into, because if somebody grabs a spot, you're going to have to improve your engine to get to the next spot in the first place. And you can even get rewarded as people establish their new trading posts, because if you're already there and they establish a route next to you, then you'll get points that way. So interaction is a huge part of this game, but it all boils down to that route building. And for me, this is one of the finest designed games of all time. The reason it's not higher on the list is simply because I think there's more things going on, not just the route building, whereas some of these other games, there is, of course, route building is a bit more of the core focus, if you want to put it that way. But still, number 3 is a great shout and still one of the finest games ever made. So that is Hanza Tonica at number 3. At number 2, I have Caesar's Empire, another game that I feel is criminally underrated, one of the purest form of route building games that you'll see out there, and so approachable and easy to play. So in this game, you are going to start in Rome, and you're going to be placing your kind of your legions of troops out from Rome, building these routes up and reaching new cities as you go. Whenever you reach a new city, you'll get a couple of tokens. You'll get a kind of a commodity token, which will give you points based on how many different ones you collect, so simple set collection, as well as getting rewarded for collecting duplicates of the same type. You'll also collect one of the location markers, and there are different location markers depending on where in the map you have been, and your strongest location marker of each type will score you points. But the coolest thing about this game is that whenever you finish building a route, you are going to trace the quickest route back to Rome and score a point for every single kind of legion that you'll pass through. So as you piggyback off other players' actions, they will actually get rewarded for doing that. Because let's say the red player established 2 routes by building 4 centurions, then I spent say 1 more route in order to reach a new city. I'll get my rewards, but then I'll get 1 point for the legion that I placed, but my opponent will get 4 points based on all the effort they did before that. Now, it's all about trying to not give your opponents passive points, because of course, if you just keep on kind of leeching off your opponents, they're going to keep getting rewarded anyway. So you kind of want to be snowballing your own routes if you can, and maybe finding tricky little ways to shortcut that route back to Rome, or even try to divert it so that it goes through more of your own troops to get more points, in increasing that kind of repeated reward as you take or use the same routes again and again and again. A lightning fast game, only takes around 20 to 30 minutes to play. Again, it scales very well. I probably wouldn't suggest 2, but 3, 4 or 5 players. It is excellent, nice and bright and colourful, easy rules, good decisions, and kind of has all the hallmarks of a game that I'd love. The only nitpick is that it's a slightly overproduced, so you are looking at a slightly higher price point if it's available at all, because I know the publisher did go out of business. But I'm sure this one will be back because it feels so clean, and it just feels like a true family weight game that's going to be enough to keep gamers satisfied as well. So that is Caesar's Empire at number 2. And finally, at number 1, I have Babylonia. So the second Reiner Knizia game on this list, but this game does feel quite a bit different to Through the Desert, because of course in Through the Desert you are extending existing caravans. In this one you have a bit more free form to do whatever you want to do, because you don't have to just extend existing routes. You can just pop up anywhere you like on this board. But the general idea is that you want to be connecting cities together by placing your tokens onto the board. Each token has a symbol that can match the cities, and every time a city is surrounded, then it will score, kind of trigger a scoring. Then if your chain of tokens connects to that city, then each matching symbol will score you points. But there are different things you can do. So for example, you can collect these farmer tokens by just kind of spawning there. You can collect player powers by surrounding these ziggurats. You can even collect the cities by having the majority of the hexes surrounding those cities. Each time you collect a city, you'll get a point for each city you have. So it can really start to snowball if you focus on that strategy. But what I love about this game is that when you first look at the board, it looks wide open. It looks like you'll be able to achieve everything. But before you know it, that board is quickly gobbled up, and there really isn't that much leeway to do what you want to do. So it's all about trying to prioritize your actions, get those key spots to create that network and that route of your tokens, so you can keep on leeching off your previous efforts and scoring new cities with the same tokens. It's a genius design. I think at this moment it's my favourite Reini Knizia game, which says a lot because I love his games, but this is the best of them, and it's in my top, say, 5 games of all time. It is that good. So that is Babylonia, a well-deserved number 1. Okay, so that concludes the top 10 games, but let's talk about some honourable mentions very briefly. So Trials of Tucana was one that I was thinking of, a simple flip and write style game. Of course, the Great Brass Birmingham, but I thought there was a bit too much going on, and it's not just about the route building. Power Grid, Council of 4, more Knizia games with Blue Lagoon and Havilandi, the Guild of Merchant Explorers, Blackout Hong Kong, the Hall of the Mountain King, Suro, Punkt, so lots of different route building games out there. And again, looking back at this list, sometimes it's not the easiest to find 10 really good games to fit these top 10 lists, but I could have easily found 20 games for the route building genre. So definitely one of my favourite aspects of board gaming, maybe without even being so conscious about it, which I thought was quite interesting. But that concludes the video. If you have enjoyed it, please be sure to hit like and subscribe to my channel. Check out my other content too, and check out the BGG page for my new game Thalamus, which will be available soon. But for everybody else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye bye.